My family kicked me out of the vacation I paid for, so I made sure they'd never forget their stay. After a miscarriage, my family convinced me to take a luxury vacation to heal. But when we arrived, my room was gone, canceled using my account. Their excuse? We didn't want your grief killing the vibe. They didn't know this would be the last time they messed with me. I never expected my family to be there for me when Jake walked out. After everything we'd been through, I thought if anything bad ever happened, he would at least stay. But 3 days after the miscarriage, he packed his bags. He barely looked at me. He mumbled something about needing space, said he couldn't breathe in the apartment anymore, and then he was gone. Just like that. I was left alone. Alone with the silence, with the echo of what could have been. Alone with the memory of tiny hopes that would never become real. The first week after he left passed in a blur. I barely remember eating or sleeping. I wandered through our apartment like a ghost, drifting from room to room. I'd find myself touching his things, his favorite jacket still draped over the kitchen chair, his half-empty mug by the sink. I picked up the remote he used to hog and stared at it like it might explain something. Was any of it real? The life we built, the promises, the excitement when we saw the 2 pink lines? Or had it all just been a story I told myself? Grief hit me in waves. Sometimes it was soft, like a tide brushing against my ankles, just enough to make me feel the sadness. Other times, it slammed into me like a wall of water, sudden and fierce, pulling me under until I couldn't breathe. I'd wake up crying, fall asleep exhausted, and spend the days doing nothing but feeling everything. So when Emily called, I was surprised. Not just surprised, shocked. I hadn't spoken to her much in the past few months. We were sisters, but our relationship had always been rocky. She had a way of turning everything into a competition, and I had long since stopped trying to keep up. "Hey sis," she said, her voice gentle. "How are you holding up?" There was a softness in her tone I hadn't heard in years. Maybe not since we were kids. "I'm breathing," I said. It was the only honest answer I could give. "Not good, not okay. Just breathing." She hesitated, then spoke again. "Listen, we've been talking. Me, Julie, and Mom. We think you need to get away for a while." I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, unsure if I'd heard her right. "What do you mean, a vacation?" "Something to clear your head," she said. "We could all go together like a girls' trip. You, me, Mom, and Julie." For a second, I thought she was joking. Emily never missed a chance to remind me she had it more together than I did. Julie usually avoided conflict by pretending I didn't exist. And Mom? Mom had the emotional depth of a teaspoon, especially when it came to my problems. She was the kind of woman who would tell you to pull yourself together 5 minutes after your world had fallen apart. "That's unexpected," I said carefully. "We care about you, Natalie," Emily said. "We want to help." There was something different in her voice, a quiet sincerity I hadn't heard before. It caught me off guard. Maybe they were finally growing up. Or maybe loss had a way of shifting people, cracking them open, letting something real come through. I didn't know what to think, but I was desperate to feel like a person again. Desperate to be anywhere, but in the apartment where everything reminded me of Jake, of what we'd lost. So I said yes. I went all in. I booked the flights to Mexico. I reserved a luxury 3-bedroom penthouse suite at a beachfront resort. I signed us up for spa packages, snorkeling tours, and yoga sessions. It was all prepaid, non-refundable. It cost more than I should have spent, but I didn't care. I needed this. Maybe we all did. But the cracks started to show almost immediately. During one of our planning calls, Emily was already complaining. "I am not sharing a room with Julie," she said. "She snores like a freight train." Julie's voice shot back through the speaker. "I do not snore. And anyway, you're not exactly a dream to room with either, Miss. I need complete darkness and silence." Mom sighed in the background. "Girls, please. Let's just figure it out when we get there." I massaged my temples, trying to stay calm as the familiar bickering between my sisters filled the phone. "There are 3 bedrooms, I said, my voice tired. "We'll make it work." It seemed like a simple enough solution. I'd booked a luxury suite with plenty of space, 3 bedrooms, just as promised, and I had no plans to micromanage who shared what. As far as I was concerned, I would take 1 room for myself, since I was the one who paid for everything, and they could sort out the rest however they liked. I didn't have the strength to referee their arguments, not after everything that had happened. I was here to rest, to heal, and maybe even to forget, at least for a little while. The last thing I needed was another round of family drama. When we arrived at the resort, it was everything I had hoped for. Everything the website had promised, and more. Tall palm trees swayed gently in the warm breeze, lining the pristine walkways. The ocean stretched wide and blue just beyond the edge of the property, its surface sparkling under the afternoon sun. The lobby gleamed with polished marble floors and carefully arranged tropical flowers. Cool air drifted from above, carrying the faint scent of citrus and salt water. For the first time in weeks, I felt something inside me lift just slightly. I almost smiled, but that feeling didn't last long. At the front desk, a receptionist greeted us with a polite smile. Her uniform was crisp, and her voice was calm and professional. "Name, please." I gave her my name and stepped forward, already imagining myself stretched out by the pool or soaking in a hot tub. She typed for a few moments. Then her fingers slowed. Her brow creased. Her expression shifted from neutral to apologetic. "Oh," she said softly. "It looks like your reservation was adjusted. You no longer have a room under this booking." My stomach dropped. "What?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "That's impossible. I made the reservation. I paid for it. I haven't changed anything." Behind me, I could feel my family standing in silence. I turned to look at them, and something in their faces made my skin go cold. They didn't look surprised. They looked guilty. I stared at Emily. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She shifted uncomfortably, gaze fixed somewhere over my shoulder. "What's going on?" I asked slowly, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Emily let out a long, theatrical sigh. The kind she always gave when she wanted to make herself sound like the victim. "We just didn't want the trip to turn into one big sob story," she said. "You understand, right?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. Shock held my tongue still. But when it passed, all I felt was disgust. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a computer error. They had done this on purpose. Suddenly, something clicked in my memory. A small moment that hadn't seemed important at the time. 2 days before the trip, Emily had stopped by my apartment. She said she was checking in, wanted to see how I was holding up. I hadn't thought much of it until now. While she was there, she'd asked to borrow my phone. "Can I use your phone real quick?" "Mine's dead and I need to call Mom," she'd said. I'd handed it to her without thinking. She didn't make a call. I remembered that now. She just typed for a few moments. When she gave it back, I'd glanced at the screen and noticed a message from my bank. It was a verification code. I'd asked her about it. She had shrugged. Just a random text. Probably best to ignore it. People scam you with messages like that, you know. And I'd believed her. Why wouldn't I? But standing at the check-in desk, it all came together. Emily had used my phone. She had used my security code. She had accessed my reservation. And she had changed it. She had stolen the suite out from under me. I turned back toward the receptionist, my mouth dry. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked, my voice low and tight. Mom spoke before anyone else. "I'm sure there are plenty of nice ghost houses nearby," she said casually. "Exactly the kind of quiet, relaxing atmosphere you need right now." Her words hit me like ice water. "You expect me to pay for a room somewhere else after I already booked the suite here?" I asked, barely able to keep the anger from breaking through. Emily waved her hand like the whole thing was no big deal. "It's for the best, Natalie." Her words echoed in my head as I stood there, stunned. "You'll get to stay in a peaceful guest house," Mom said, as if that solved everything. "Somewhere quiet, where you'll have time to reflect on everything you've been through." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Julie jumped in too, her tone light, as if she were offering helpful advice. "Emily's right. A smaller place with, chill vibes will probably be way better for your healing process than some big hotel. It'll give you space to think. And this way, we all get to unwind and make the most of the vacation." That was when the truth settled in. This trip, this so-called girls' getaway that was supposed to help me heal, had never really been about me. They didn't care about my loss, or how broken I'd felt these past few weeks. They didn't care about what Jake had done, or how I had spent days walking through my apartment like a ghost. No, this was about something else entirely. They didn't want to share the suite. That was it. They wanted space, privacy, comfort, and, above all, a free vacation at my expense. "I want to know who made this change," I said, turning sharply back toward the receptionist. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. The woman behind the counter looked nervous now. She shifted her weight and gave me a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't disclose that information without authorization." My heart was pounding, but I refused to back down. "Then I'll call corporate." From behind me, I heard Emily scoff, loud enough for everyone to notice. "Oh, come on. You're being dramatic." I didn't even turn around. I raised my hand to silence her, my focus already on my phone as I searched for the number. The line connected. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, though every word felt like it was being pulled from deep inside my chest. The representative transferred me to a supervisor named Daniel. "Your original booking was a 3-bedroom penthouse suite," Daniel confirmed after a moment. "It was paid in full and listed under your name. But 2 days ago, a request was made to remove you from the reservation and transfer the suite to 3 new guests, Emily, Julie, and Patricia." My grip on the phone tightened. My fingers were cold. And the payment? I asked. Still on your card, he said. Our system flagged it as unusual, but unfortunately, it wasn't manually reviewed. I turned slowly to face my family, my eyes landing on Emily first. The ice in my chest spread outward, stiffening every part of me. You used my phone, I said, my voice low. My bank code. You pretended to be me. Emily didn't speak, but the smug expression on her face wavered slightly. Just slightly. That's fraud, I added. Mom stepped forward, trying to smooth things over. Her expression was tight, and she waved her hands like she was swatting away a problem. Don't be ridiculous, she said. We didn't think it was a big deal. You stole my room, I said. Emily folded her arms, trying to hold on to her confidence. We did this as a favor. We thought you could use space. Time alone. Then why not tell me? I asked. Why do it behind my back? She opened her mouth, but didn't say anything. She couldn't. There was no excuse that would sound reasonable now. I brought the phone back to my ear. Daniel, I said, I want my reservation reinstated immediately. The guests currently in the suite will need to make their own arrangements. I'm not paying for them. There was a pause on the line. Then, I can do that, he replied. The change will take a few minutes. I'll also flag your account to ensure this doesn't happen again. Thank you. I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my bag. When I looked up, the faces in front of me had changed. Julie's eyes were wide, her mouth open in disbelief. What the hell? She shrieked. Emily, do something. Emily's face had gone pale, but she said nothing. Her confidence had vanished, and in its place was something like guilt, or maybe fear. Mom looked furious. Her cheeks were flushed red, and her lips were tight. She stepped toward me, her voice sharp. You can't just abandon your own family like this. I didn't answer right away. I simply looked at the three of them, my family, the people who were supposed to support me when I needed it most, and saw them clearly for the first time in a long while. I tilted my head slightly, watching them squirm. You mean the way you all just tried to abandon me? The words came out calmly, but there was no mistaking the weight behind them. The truth sat heavy in the space between us, impossible to ignore. The receptionist cleared her throat, clearly trying to keep things moving. I'll need to process this adjustment right away, she said, her tone professional. Ladies, we'll need a valid credit card on file for your stay. There was a pause. A long one. Then, without saying anything, Mom pulled a card from her wallet and tossed it on the counter. Her expression was tight with irritation, as though this was all some petty inconvenience she was being forced to endure. The receptionist swiped the card, waited, then frowned. I'm sorry. This card has been declined. The silence grew louder. Emily stepped up next and handed over hers with a tense smile. The receptionist tried again. Another decline. Julie's eyes went wide. Wait, what? You guys don't have. Mom looked down and shifted on her feet. They put a hold on my account for the cruise next month, she muttered. Emily flushed red and crossed her arms. My limit's already maxed. I reached for a complimentary water bottle from the counter, unscrewed the cap, and took a long sip, letting the silence stretch. The cool water soothed my throat, but the moment itself was satisfying in a way I hadn't expected. Well, I said quietly, placing the bottle down. This is awkward. Mom turned to me sharply, eyes narrowed. Fix this. Her voice was laced with the same entitlement I'd grown up with. The assumption that I'd give in, that I'd patch things up, because that's what I always did. No, I said. Emily stepped closer, her voice more urgent now. You're seriously going to do this to us? I met her eyes without flinching. You did it to yourselves. And with that, I turned away. I took the room key the receptionist handed me and walked toward the elevator without looking back. Behind me, I could still hear their voices rising in disbelief, but I kept going. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had control over something, over myself. The penthouse suite was breathtaking. Sunlight streamed through the tall glass doors leading to the balcony, casting a golden glow over the marble floors and soft, elegant furniture. Everything smelled fresh and clean, with a faint trace of citrus in the air. I walked slowly through the space, taking it in. Then I stepped out onto the balcony and lowered myself into a chair, a glass of complimentary champagne in hand. The view was spectacular. The ocean stretched endlessly in front of me, waves crashing softly along the shore below. Palm trees rustled in the breeze, and the sky above was starting to turn shades of peach and lavender as the sun began its slow descent. My phone buzzed. It was Emily. Emily, do you know how expensive this is? A second message popped up. Mom, you're unbelievably selfish. Then Julie chimed in. Julie, you destroyed our family over a hotel room. Hope it was worth it. I stared at the screen, champagne halfway to my lips. A small part of me hesitated. Had I gone too far? Had I really just cut off my own family over a room? But as I sat there, phone still in my hand, the memories started to surface. The lies, the manipulation, the guilt trips and gaslighting. The way Emily always found a way to undercut me, to make sure I stayed one step behind. The way Mom always put her needs and my sister's needs first, while mine were brushed aside as dramatic or unimportant. And Julie, who never said much, but always stood silently by, watching and letting it happen. This moment wasn't about a hotel room. It was about a lifetime of being treated like an afterthought, of giving more than I ever got back, of being expected to carry the weight of a family that never truly cared for me the way I needed. I opened my settings and without hesitation, blocked them all. It was surprisingly easy. Turns out, a vacation really was exactly what I needed, just not with them. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden reflections across the surface of the water, something inside me shifted. The hollow space carved by grief was still there, it hadn't vanished, but beside it now grew something else. Something stronger. Maybe it was clarity. Maybe it was peace. Or maybe it was the first flicker of self-worth that didn't depend on someone else's approval. I raised my glass to the horizon. To new beginnings, I whispered. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt free.